'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Death is a master teacher. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again, Salt Strong, Unchurched, bright and early here. Whew, death is a master teacher. It is so true, and I needed to hear this. All these podcasts are different, but many times the topics I discuss and the lessons that I'm sharing are things that I'm personally going through or dealing with. And I'll share what I mean in a second. But I saw this post from someone I follow on, I think it was on Instagram. And it was titled Death is a Master Teacher. And it listed a few reasons why. And some of them a little bit didn't really apply to me. And so I ended up writing kind of my own notes on this. But the first line is really what got my attention. After death is a master teacher. And it said, imagine you are going to die tomorrow. So really imagine that. None of us get that type of a heads up. We all know it's going to happen at some point, but rarely do we get that type of a heads up. So imagine you're going to die tomorrow, or even in the next week. Now ask yourself, knowing that, how important are the things that you're worrying about today? Right? What's heavy on your heart or on your shoulders right now? What are you worried about today? Is it something with the job or the family or spouse or your home or moving or whatever it might be? How important are these things that are keeping us up at night right now? Right? I mean, that's a really good way to think about it. And it doesn't mean, that we should just brush off anything, because there are obviously some things that we're dealing with at any given time that are really important. But just how important are they if we knew we were going to die here tomorrow or in the very near future? How important is social media? How important are any arguments on social media? How important are just any arguments in general? How important are any fights that maybe you're in or you were a part of, right? Maybe you went to bed last night mad at a spouse or a child or a parent or whatever it is. How important are all of those arguments? And I guess even more importantly, how many of those would you want to call and apologize about? Is there someone right now that you would reach out to and ask for forgiveness or an apology, or just to make up, even if it was 100% their fault? What kind of regrets would you have? How would you structure your day differently, right? Because this is really where it hit home for me when I found out that I had cancer at 28. And anytime, if you've ever heard someone tell you you've got cancer, you automatically, because we're human, we assume the worst, right? I just assumed when I heard that I'm dying. I really believed, like, in all of my heart. And when I first heard it, obviously I changed my tune and really got close with God. I mean, my walk with God was closer than ever before, shortly after I found out about the cancer. But during those 24 to 48 hours of finding out, I absolutely freaked out. Like, I was like, I'm dying. I'm selling all my stuff. I'm giving it away. I'm writing a will. You just assume the worst when you find out you have cancer. And obviously it ended up being okay. But it taught me a lot about what was important at that time. If you've read my book, Fishing for Happiness, I share really in depth what I was going through at that time. But I was 100% concerned about money and what people thought of me and in my job, in my career. And I was a absolute workaholic. And at the time, I was so attached to my phone and emails in particular. Every little ding and vibration, like boom, it was just like a Pavlov's dog. Like I jumped all over it. And that didn't matter if I was at dinner. That didn't matter if I would be on a date and it would just be like killing me. Because the time I was single, of just, oh gosh, who's emailing? Who's texting me? How important is this? And I mean, it's all I thought about. It consumed me. And when I found out I had cancer, that was one of the first things to not go. I'm not saying you just go cold turkey on something like that, which what I would consider just a bad habit. But I certainly put the phone down. I couldn't go to the bathroom without my phone. I mean, I'm talking, I literally had it everywhere. It was next to my bedstand. It was never out of sight. And I remember that was one of the first times where I just said, man, this thing isn't that important. This phone is consuming me, and these emails can wait. Just because I finally had a different mindset. Maybe that was God just slowing me down to really take a breather and say, what's really important here in life? And to me, that was a reset. It was the ultimate reset on really looking at what's important. I started having deeper conversations. I started calling people I loved. I forgave people that I was mad at the time. I mean, it was literally like a reset for me spiritually, and for me, I guess just dealing with all the stuff that we deal with, social media and all that. I didn't care anymore. And none of that stuff was important. What was important is, one, trying to survive, but two, just making sure that I was spending time and telling everyone that I loved, that I in my life that was important to me, that I cared about them. It really, really wild how quickly things change when you have a different perspective. Like imagining you're going to die tomorrow. So hoping you don't have, or hopefully you're not going through that or have to go through that anytime soon. But I would love for you just to kind of imagine that, let's just say you got a week left or a month left or just 24 hours left. What would you do differently? To me, and this is why I started off by saying I needed to hear this, I've gotten back in that rut again of having the phone on me at all times. And so for me personally, I needed to hear this message about death as the master teacher. And I'm going to start practicing a new habit of putting my phone away, right? I've talked about it before, where I started taking it to the dinner table, and then, I've got out of it. And, even my wife and kids had busted me a couple of times. And now I started going back in that little habit again, because I had a couple of important things come up, and I was, just keep it here in my pocket at the dinner table. And now I'm just leaving it in my office on the desk, for a few hours. I can't do it all day, but for a few hours, right? Not worrying about what's on social media or what someone's saying about me or Salt Strong or any of that stuff. Some of that just can absolutely consume you. And right, I mean, how important are all these little things that we worry about? How important are they if we knew we only had a month left? I'm guessing there's quite a few things you would just completely dismiss, put it way on the back burner, or completely just ignore and say that's not even important. So this is going to be a quick one, because this is really on you. This is your homework assignment, is knowing that death is the master teacher, and really can open your eyes to what's important, and just as important, what's not as important, meaning just as critical, what's not important. What things would you delete? What things would you just mash that delete button, get out of your life? What things would you stop worrying about? What things would you change? How would you structure your day differently? I mean, to me, that's the big question I ask myself. How would I structure my day differently if I knew, even if I just knew I had a year left, how would I structure my day differently? Because I think the 24 hours, can be a little bit tough, because, obviously that's a really short amount of time. But let's just say you had a year. What would you do differently over the next year? If you knew you had 1 year left on this earth, how would you structure your day, your week, the month differently? What would you do? Who would you spend it with? How would you treat people? What would you avoid doing? Really, really interesting. So homework assignments on you. I'd love to hear any feedback. Hopefully, I pray every time before I get on these podcasts that it just hits the right person. God's got a magic way of doing that. And so if this was speaking to you like it is to me, just with my phone and my kind of I'll just call it an addiction to emails and always being there in the mix of everything going on. I needed this reminder again to slow down. Joe, slow down is what God's telling me. So love you guys. Love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts, questions, etc., joe@saltstrong.com. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode. Got a really cool one coming up the following Sunday with one of our Insider members who is a pretty well-known author in the Christian space and has written a book about fishing and all of the different scripture and stories about fishing in the Bible and how important fishing is to God and Jesus and Christianity in general. Really fascinating. And I read the book. It was awesome to the point, I'm even saying a few things in it. I thought it was so impactful. And we're just going to kind of share a few things about this book coming up. So stay tuned, and I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was passed down to me from the days of old. You'll find us on the water if there was a way. It's been said my papa, he wrote the book on catching big reds and 20-pound snook. I wish I knew all the things he knew today. For he's the reason why we are this way. And he put fishing